All
All right.
righty.
Yeah, Jerry, give that video a whirl and we'll see how it's looking.
All right.
Well, Jerry's working on something here. Anybody that's joining us, we're just trying to make sure we got Jerry's super high def fly tying video feed working pretty well. So bear with us for a minute while we give a little practice run here.
All right.
So whenever you're ready, buddy.
All right. We'll try this practice run on this.
All right.
All right. Can you see?
Yep. Super high quality video, little pause, but I think people will get the idea extremely well because you got it really close up there and you can see all of it. So you know what? It's not going to be Hollywood level, but I think people will get the idea very well. And Jerry, we're not going to worry about it.
All right. Sounds good. All right. Let me just start everything up then. All righty.
All right. So for anybody that's joining us right now, we're going to give it a few minutes for people to finish their dinner, grab a cocktail, let the dog out, whatever it is you need to do, and then we'll get rolling here.
Sounds good. Let me just
no problem, Jerry.
Rewind what I'm on.
Of course. Yeah, you know, when I did the Future of FFI series, my gosh, what's that been now? Like 5 or 6 weeks when we started the whole FFI Online series?
Yeah.
Yeah, the best version we had, and Jen Ripple was a fantastic co-host and moderator. I had done 2 in the same day because we were trying to accommodate for our international members and so we were doing it odd times of the day so that they weren't getting up too early or too late. And I forgot to set the PowerPoint back to the beginning. So every time I was like, okay, let's start the presentation, and I'd go to start the PowerPoint, and I didn't pay attention at first because the photo is same on the first slide and the last slide, and it took me like 3 tries, but fortunately we have a little bit of editing software and we're able to make a little bit of a difference there and edit out some of that stuff along the way. Yep. So
all right, I think I can get going now.
Well, I want to tell you what, Jerry, why don't we give it another minute?
Sure.
And if you want to go ahead and just share it from the beginning of the PowerPoint, our videos will be in the right-hand corner so that when you're ready to get going, you're starting smoothly from that first slide. Sound good?
Yes. There we go.
Yep. So like I said, we'll give it another minute or so. We've done a lot of these now, maybe 15 or so. And my experience is that, especially doing the global fly fishing with Jeff Currier, is that it takes a few minutes for people to log on, and maybe they don't want to hear the intro stuff and they're like, nah, I just want to get to the meaty stuff, right? So
right.
That could be too. So what's the weather like where you're at? You got fishing weather?
Oh yeah, it's nice out. It's 85 degrees during the day now.
That's not good.
Well, for me, it's I don't like it that hot, but over the weekend it was nice and cool. At least I think it was in the 75s. But I was out pan fishing, crappie fishing, trying some new things out. See with this foam dragonfly that I was using, and caught a crappie, couple of panfish, different spot of the Neshaminy, just to try to document different areas of the river.
Right on. Let's see what time we got here. All right, 8:03. Why don't we get going, Jerry? Does that sound good?
Sure, sounds good.
All right, so for everybody joining us right now, we appreciate it. This is one of the episodes of Fly Fishers International Online, where we try to bring the FFI experience out to you. I am Patrick Berry. I'm the president and CEO of Fly Fishers International. And we've been pretty excited and getting a lot of great feedback, bringing all the online content, fly fishing, fly casting, fly tying, fly fishing skills, conservation. We've had a great series for 5 weeks with Jeff Currier from Jeff Currier Global Fly Fishing. And that was really fun too. Just want to point out, and it's important that everything we've been doing that people have been excited about, and which we actually have on our website. If you go to flyfishersinternational.org, right on the homepage, there's a link to get to all of the recorded episodes. Everything we're doing is made possible by the support from our members. So for our members out there, thank you. Hope you've enjoyed this. And if you're not a member, we're delighted to have you and would encourage you to support this continued work. We're going to do another week or so of the FFI online broadcast. We have a great week next week as well. And then we're going to take a break, let everybody go fishing for a while, and then reconvene the entire series with a whole bunch of new episodes starting next fall, winter, when everybody's cold and looking for something to do. And in the meantime, you can catch most of the recorded episodes on our website, free of charge for anybody. So tonight, I'm going to hand this off to Jerry Coviello, who is the head of our Fly Tying Board of Governors, our Fly Tying Group, which is a really important part of the organization. And he's going to talk to you about taming elk hair and deer hair, basically not letting it get away from us when we're trying to tie flies, especially downwing flies. So Jerry, why don't I hand this off to you right now?
Sure. Thanks, Patrick. Before I start, I want to tell everybody somebody's married 24 years. Congratulations, Pat. Many more.
Thanks, buddy. Jerry, you're a good friend. So, yep, my 24-year anniversary was yesterday. I guess I feel pretty lucky, and that's incredibly kind of you, Jerry. You're a good man, and I hope you've got some really bad champagne there.
All righty.
Thanks, bud.
All right, everybody. One of the things, how you could help the Fly Tying Group. You could become a member of the Fly Tying Group. By membership, you get all the things that we do, we give to everybody, all the members anyway, but you get a chance to help us develop new products for the Learning Center. And this is one way to help us out. So, but you also have to be a member of the Fly Fishers International, join the Fly Tying Group. So I just want to breeze through this. One of the things that we do is the Fly Tying Skill Award Program. It's a bronze, silver, and gold awards program. It provides the members with an opportunity to develop and reinforce their fly tying skills. The whole program is on the website. You can go take a look at that and give it a shot, especially tying right now. While we're in lockdown, this might give you couple of things to do. So I'd like to just start right now. Differences with elk hair and how to purchase it. You could, my way is the best way to purchase elk hair. You have to be in person at a fly shop or a fly fishing show. That's my number one way. Number two, make friends with a taxidermist. Get some scraps, perfect. Friends in Wyoming is very important, especially if they hunt for elk. It's great. What you want to look for is that nice long hair. This is great for stimulators. So you have a nice long hairs, and just the tips are a nice color. You can mail order it. Honestly, it can be hit or miss, but make sure you mail order from a reputable company. You might get lucky on eBay. If you're going to do something on eBay, check to see if they are out in Wyoming, Montana, areas that have elk. It might be, like I said, you can get lucky. I've actually have ordered from eBay once. The hairs were a little brittle. So like I said, you want to be able to see the hair, but mail order, companies like Nature Spirit, Waspy, they do pretty good with their quality control. For stimulators, I'm going to say cow elk is the best. As you can see, this is from the package. It's nice and long. It looks exactly like what I bought at a fly shop. It's easy to purchase online. It's excellent hair, and it's long enough for the wings on a stimulator. You can also get elk that is bleached. This is when you want to have the wings or of the hair a lighter color to match certain other insects that are on the cream color side. Now, deer hair. This is a great piece of mule deer hair I got. And once again, that was purchased at a fly shop. in person. Fibers are nice and long. This is great for spinning. And honestly, this can be used to replace elk hair. The only differences are, think of it as a straw. The deer hair, if it was a straw, would be thinner, while the elk is thicker. More floatability with the elk, will stay up longer compared to the deer hair. That's about it. Other than that, they both can be interchangeable. Going to go over tying the stimulator, this orange stimulator. I'm using a curved shank hook from Dirichi, hot orange 70 denier from Uni. Elk hair fibers are only as long as about a gap to a gap and a half long, as long as the gap is wide. I don't know how many people use the gold wire when they rib a dry fly, but this time I'm going to show you how to tie this fly to be almost indestructible, and the gold wire helps out. And then the brown hackle is palmered through the body. This is a high floating fly, and the body I'm using orange Angora goat. Extremely harder to dub, but you take your time, you'll be okay. The wing is elk hair. You just line it up to the tail. The head is you can use amber or yellow, and the collar is a grizzly hackle wound through the body.
Hey, so Jerry, hey,
yeah.
Before you get going any further, I want to make sure I interject an important public service announcement, which is that Jerry is looking forward to getting a lot of questions, which if you look on the bottom of your screen, you'll find in a Q&A box. And what we'll do is we'll try to answer those questions at the end, unless there's a really good one that comes along during the presentation that's pertinent. And so I'm going to actually go ahead and throw one at you, Jerry. And it's okay if you keep your screen up too, Jerry, while we answer these questions next time. So this is a great question. And one thing that I was thinking about too, from an anonymous attendee, what do you look for to pick the best elk hair? Winter harvest or summer harvest? Which part of the elk patch is best? And it's funny you asked that, because I was thinking that especially if you've got a buddy in the Northern Rockies that can get you an entire elk hide, when would you want to get it? Obviously during the regulated hunting season, and then where from the body to choose some of this material?
First of all, any animal with deer hair, elk hair, as I've been told and as I've seen, winter is the best. That's when they really beef up. The hair is thicker. The only negative thing is they got a lot more underfur in there, but that's fine. That's what they're calling for. So that's what you really want is, if you can get winter, that's great. Summer, they start to shed and it will get thinner. The other thing is the back. You ever see when a dog gets riled up, all its guard hairs stick up, when it becomes a predator? Well, on all mammals, that hair at the back side is the one that's going to be the most thick, and it's going to have the most guard hairs. And for spinning deer hair, that's even better, the nice long and thick ones. So I like to use the back to almost the mid-sized. Okay.
Yeah, we've got a few more questions. We'll pause on that. And for everybody else too, we were having a little bit of issue with the video, but with a little we practiced, and you'll get a good idea of what Jerry's doing as far as looking for techniques and information. So go ahead, Jerry.
Sure. So as I showed you the elk hair, well, the first thing we want to do with this elk hair is we're going to stack it and make the tail. So I take a couple of fibers, almost a half a pencil, and I make sure I cut it right at the base where the hide is. Then I'll take a comb and I'll trim I'll comb it through to get all those underfur out. Some people call them fuzzies. And I'll just make sure that that's all out. I'll get my hair stacker and I'll make sure I put them in tips first. Give it a couple of pounds on the table. And as you see here, this is a hair stacker. You can see how the tips are all lined up. Once I put the hook in there, the vise, I will take the thread and I will start about an eye length behind the eye, and then I'll trim the tag off, and I'll bring my thread to the bend of the hook. Two things are happening at this point. One, I'm putting a layer of thread onto the shank of the hook, sort of like putting salt down on ice. Now the bend of the hook is lined up exactly where the barb is, so that's why I didn't debarb this. And I'll bring my thread to where I'm going to start my tying point, which is 2/3 away from the bend of the hook. So now I'm set. Now I'm going to put the tail in, and to make a nice even body, first I'll measure the tips, make sure they're a gap to a gap and a half wide so that they're that long. I will place them on top of the hook at the tie-in point. I will move my left hand, my right hand to the where I'm going to secure it, move my left hand to hold, and then I'm going to use the pinch method. I'm going to put the thread in between my thumb and index finger. But at this point, I want to show you something with thread control. If you go to pull that thread, this is not what you want to happen to your tail. So now you have to make sure, if I pulled that all the way through tight, the tail would look like what's happening to those butt hairs. So as I go towards the bend of the hook, these are open and wide spirals, and there's very little tension, just enough to get it on the hook. So right there, it's secure, it's not tight. And then I like to put 2 or 3 good wraps underneath the tail to keep them standing pretty straight, pointing back. Then I'll run my thread back to the tie-in point. At this point, then I'll cut the butts off. I have just created the body that's going to be nice and airy, so it'll float. Now I'm going to put the gold wire in. This is what I was talking about, and in making this fly indestructible. This gold wire is going to help it so that the fish's teeth don't rip the hackle and this thing gets ruined. So what I did was I put a little like a shepherd's hook, and I ran the wire to the bend of the hook, and then I will put the wire into my material clip. Now at this point, I'm going to take some orange Angora goat. It's a seal fur substitute. It's nice and shiny, but it is not easy to dub. I would suggest if you're having problems, and I'm at the point where I should have used it, but I didn't want to, use the wax if it does cause you problems. But I don't like to use the wax because I like to be able to slide the fur up. So adding the dubbing, I'll put it in and watch when I do my first turn. I'm going to hold the tail so that I can control the tail to make sure that that stays on top of the shank of the hook as I go forward to create the body. Now the stimulator, a lot of people think the stimulator was designed by Randall Kaufman, and that is not true. It was designed by Jim Slattery, and a Jersey boy of all things, to fish on in New Jersey on the Musconecton. Now Jim Slattery owns the Campfire Lodge in Yellowstone, right by Hebgen Lake. Now this is what I wanted to talk about. If you do not keep tension while dubbing, and this fur, you saw that it automatically unrolled because I didn't keep the tension. Now I wanted to unpack it out and tighten it back up. What happened to me was I had the cameras in between myself and the vise. So I had 8 inches out and the camera's 6 inches. So when I hit the camera, it caused slack. So what I did was I just used the rotating vise, and I was able to get my tension back. So it's very important to keep that tension.
So Jerry, I got a question for you, which
Sure.
is a Patrick question. So now that you've mentioned the inventor of this fly, is one of the reasons that you'll use Angora, which is a little more challenging, is because that was the original material that Jim Slattery intended?
He did not. When I went to look up this pattern years ago, it was written in Eric Leiser's 10,000 Flies pattern book, which is like a classic. and he used Angora goat for it. He said that that was what what it was. Um, I kind of like. I would have my personal. I would have went to an ice dubbing, UV, give it a little more flash. Um, just my own personal preference.
So
Uh,
you're following what Reisring had in the book.
yes, and
Gotcha.
the difference between his book and what I'm tying is he uses a straight 3x shank hook, where I've gone to what Randall Kaufman went to a curved shank. So there's a couple of crossovers here.
Gotcha. All right, good. Move on. Just wanted to ask that.
No problem. So I just wrap it up. Oh, and the stimulator is named for a punk rock band that used to perform in New York City. The band was called the Stimulators. So that's a little history about that. And
That's a Cliff Flavin little known fact.
yeah, and if you get a chance and you want to fish down there, he makes the best cinnamon rolls I've ever had in my life. So now I'm going to put the body hackle in. I'm going to tie it at the front. A lot of times you'll see it tied at the bend and work forward, but here's where this fly will be indestructible. I'm going to tie it from where the body ended, and I'm going to go to the bend of the hook. So I'm going to do nice open spirals going from 2 wraps in front of the body, and then I'm going to just open it up like a Palmer rib through the body. It's going in the same direction of the body, so that's really a Palmer rib, because then the stem does get buried a little bit into the fur. And make sure they're nice and open. This helps keep this fly floating higher. Not only does this imitate some sort of a stone fly, it has also been used for hoppers. So when I get to the bend, I hold it at the bend. I'll take the wire and give 2 wraps of wire right at the bend. That will hold the hackle in place, releasing the tip. And now I'll wind the hackle forward. Now, as you see, it's nice open spacing, trying to keep it as even as I go forward. But that wire is now crossed over the stem of the hackle. So if a fish did cut that with his teeth, this hackle will not spin out. Now you've got a fly that is basically indestructible, except if you lose it in a tree or a fish breaks you off.
Yeah.
Now, you don't use your scissors to cut wire. You what is called helicopter it. You bring your bobbin all the way up to the shank. The metal fatigue will wear it out, and then cut the hackle tip. Now we're going to do the same thing. What I did was I would have stacked this. This is about a little more thicker than the tail, and I make sure that the tips lined up with the tail tips. So this is the wing of the stimulator. This is the same way I would tie in a elk hair caddis. I take 1/3 of the butts, pass my thread through, another 1/3, pass it through, and then I'll finish it up and put the thread in front of it, and then bring the thread back to the starting point where the wing is. That wing won't pull out when you tie it like that.
Gary, is that also because it helps to actually taper the tie-in rather than clipping it at a sort of an abrupt angle where now you've got a cliff when you get the grizzly hackle?
That does help, and because I've seen it where it just looks like somebody just cut it, looks square. So then I just mash all those butts in, and as you see, it has a nice taper.
It's important for this fly.
And then I'll throw in the collar hackle. This is a grizzly hackle that's going to get wrapped through the head, and I'll secure that in place. Cut the stem, and I'll bring my thread right back to the wing, and then I'm going to add the yellow Angora goat.
We've got some good questions coming in, Jerry, and we'll get to them at the end. We'll let you keep rocking through this.
So once again, I'm using yellow Angora. I like to tie these. I like to mix the yellow and the brown for nice stonefly nymphs. It's just buggy. I just like, I do like Angora. It has a nice sheen to it. Uh, I'm trying to do it as sparse as possible for the head so that when this does get wet, the orange thread will leak through the yellow, giving it a different kind of look. I don't think it makes that much of a difference, and I'll show you why I think that with the when I was fishing in Wyoming with this. But Angora is really hard to work with, but it looks nice. So
Yeah,
I'm
it
trying.
looks buggy.
Yeah, it's just amazing. I didn't like where the head was going, so I'll pull it back and I'll start building a head right there. So to give me a spot to put my grizzly hackle. Now I'm going to take the grizzly hackle. I'm just going to wrap it through the head. And one of these days I got to keep learning that the camera is only 6 inches away from the fly, and the feather was 8 inches long, and I'm hitting the camera, so it really throws me off. But it gets to the point where it's a nice high floating fly. The hackle is, if this is a size 10 hook, the hackle all the way through is the brown is really like for undersized, but the hackle at the head for a size 10. So I'll build the head up. I'll whip finish it right now. And I didn't put in the step of adding the head cement. I just wanted to get this part done. So when you look at the fly, and I'm going to flip it upside down in a second, you get that nice stonefly look, grasshopper look all the way around. The hackles are just a little bit past the point, but other than that, it's perfect. So that's there. So, and then I have some spots how to use this fly. But if you want to go through questions right now.
Yeah, let's hit the questions because they're specifically relevant to tying. So I accidentally moved on from one, and before I forget it, let me throw it out there, which was a question about I believe, if memory serves, we had one question about time of year where you end up getting elk, and the next question was where on the body does it matter you get it from? Now you answered that partly. But I know that for some flies, I'll take hawk for tail because it doesn't flare as much, as
Right.
opposed to back hair. So you want to just address that a little bit?
Well, you're gonna see different types of hair. Um, for the hawk, it's very thin. I'm trying to remember where it's mostly, I thought, on the legs, if I remember
It's
correct.
about, yeah, yep.
So that was one thing. People have used it. Honestly, haven't used a lot of it. I do have it, but it's mostly I've been using it for like emergers. I would put some in there because it's thinner. I've also used it for almost like comparadons, like that.
Yep.
Uh, so it's not something I've used a lot of. Are you able to see my screen or
I
no?
am. Let me get through these questions about the tying
Sure.
portion, though, or at least the ones we have so far, before you play that. So, a question I think a lot of us know the answer to, but there's a really valuable lesson here. Tom Rucci said, "New tire. If you tie the elk too long, can you just trim it? Will it affect the floatability of the fly?"
Not that it will affect the floatability. It won't look right.
Right.
That's one of the things. Uh, but those tips are what you want. Help it make it look like uh, the insect you're going for.
The
I,
natural taper of the wing.
I want it to look right. If you cut those tips off, it kind of takes away from the fly. I'm sure it'll catch fish, but it just won't look. It won't look right. It might not ride right because now it is heavier than what the tips were. Uh, I I would kind of leave the tips on and let it stay a little long until you start learning how to change. Or in some cases, I've told people just take a razor blade, don't ruin the hook, and just cut it off. But I would never cut the tips off. It's like when I first started to tie, one of the instructors, many well, over God 30 something years ago, they were tying a streamer, bucktail streamer, and making it too long ended up that it would be short. They would get short strikes on it. So you were always trying to line it up with the bend, closer to the bend of the hook. Um, I, I, I think it would work, but I don't think it's something you just don't want to do.
Well, I think one of the important lessons here is that, if you're going to focus on very limited elements of fly tying, proportion might be the single most important thing for a streamer, dry, nymph, or whatever, is making sure you've got the right amount about the right length on the right place on the hook.
Correct.
All right, so another question. This is a really good one, actually, and I remember wondering about this when I was getting started in tying. So Garrett Carlson asks, does the elk hair sold in fly shops come from elk farms or from the wild? Because either would be an option.
That's a good question. I never even asked that. I was back east. We have a proprietor. I don't know if anybody remembers or still remembers Rumpf. When they used to be suppliers of deer hair, fly tying materials. He used to put an advertisement out to any of the hunters that wanted to supply deer, mink, muskrats, that he would buy them that way. So I didn't think they were from farms. I didn't even, and I'll be honest, I didn't even know that elk was farmed like that, other than being on a range that somebody goes out and shoots for.
Yeah. So, and then last question we got for now, which I think is a good one, which is which scissors you're using, because some scissors are better suited than others, especially for working with hair.
Good question. Scissors that I like when I'm using hair is they used to be called ice blades. They were very sharp. In fact, I've cut my fingers when I first started. I like one. I do not like the serrated ones at all, because it tears the hair instead of giving it like a razor cut. So,
Gotcha.
I mean, the ones that, where is it? Yeah, these are just stainless steel scissors with a micro serrate on them, very micro serrate on them, extremely sharp. I remember when the ice scissors came out, they were awesome, but they were like razor blades when you cut with them. But I do not like serrated scissors, because it tears instead of being a sharper cut.
Yep. All right. So I think that's what we've got for questions for now, for you, Jerry. So why don't you go ahead and keep rocking here?
Sure. Now, taking this fly, this is on the river in Wyoming, and right after the first cast with the stimulator, you get a cutthroat that was just hanging out there, and this is in Wyoming on Venus Creek, and it took a mule ride in and spent a week up there. So my younger son and I were there, but they were very willing to take a fly. And if you take notice, the water is not that deep, but it's ice cold. It's like in the 60s, upper 60s in August. And this is on the Gray Bull, and this is the way it was all week long.
Fishing stimulators.
Just with stimulators. I didn't have to use any other fly. And you had to make sure that your fly was durable, because there were no fly shops when you're a 3-hour mule ride into the wilderness and spending the week out there.
Yeah.
You had to make sure that your flies were tied right, that you had a lot of them. And these were size 10 size 10 orange stimulators that these fish came right up to the top and took. And once again, this is on Venus Creek that flows into the Gray Bowl, and one right after another, they just take them. So
Yep.
it's a very good good fly to have. Also, it's a high floating fly. So if you wanted to fish with two flies, one subsurface, you could tie the monofilament to the bend of that hook, and you can put on a beadhead zebra, which I used in Yellowstone that way.
Yep.
They were more picky there. So you would get the option of being able to take it from two, top and bottom. So that's what I have. So
Yeah.
any other questions?
Yeah. So this is actually a really good one too, which is, this is from Gary King. Does it make a difference the size of the thread when tying the hair?
That's a good question. I think it's you don't want to go into the monocord when you're tying for dry flies. The 70 deniers or 660 thread is basically what all I have ever had to use. If you go, depending on your thickness of your thread, also dictates your materials on how much you want to put on a hook. So you can't just grab a ton of materials and throw it on a hook and expect the 6.0 to be able to compress the elk hair down.
Yeah.
So those are the things you have to worry about. So I think when you look at the pattern list and they say 70 denier or 60 or even 80 with some other brands, because they're not quite universal, but it seems like right now the denier is actually better because it's based on weight, not thickness. So I would say anywhere a 70 denier would work perfect.
Gotcha. So another great question. Thank you, Jerry. From Dave Dillon, what floating do you prefer to keep a stimulator floating?
I have used Frog's Fanny, just to throw that on, dries it off really quick. And then I've used Aquil from Loon, and that helps keep it up. So those are like my two go-tos. And then
Yeah,
I'll even use that Amadu, the mushroom, and to help dry it off also.
desiccant. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, do you mind? This is the Jerry show, but do you mind if I add my thoughts on this?
Go ahead.
I'll tell you what, I was, as most of you know, and Jerry, you know, I mean, I was a guide for a long time. And of course, always looking for something to keep things floating. And since I was mostly in the Northern Rockies and in Montana, there was a lot of deer hair patterns. And maybe I just want to believe the legend, but I am extremely partial to the mucilin in the green and white can.
Yeah.
I mean, it gets a little hard when it's cold, but you can always stick it in your waders in your pocket. And I found that my personal experience is that for deer hair, a little tougher to use than a lot of the modern floating. Because how long has that stuff been around? Forever. It's an old English for cleaning fly lines, but I was pretty ticked. I still use it to this day. I've taken my son out a bunch recently, and we're fishing a lot. Actually, you know what we're fishing? We're fishing small parachuting Madam X's, stimulators, Quigley cripples in the evening, all of which are deer or elk hair, and that's been my go-to. So that's my thoughts, Jerry.
It seems
hard
like
to find, and it's hard to find.
That's why I didn't even, when you said it, I was like, oh my God, that's like a blast from the past in the green and can. Yeah. We used to put that on the fly lines too. Yeah.
It's okay. My dry fly rod is a 1992 Sage SP. So, All right. So another question from Aaron Cully. Again, great question. Really appreciate the excellent questions. Difference between white-tailed mule deer and black-tailed hare.
Blacktail. Wow. That's a good question.
Digging deep here.
Black tip or white tipped? I am not sure. I'm not even sure I've even had any of that. That's a good question. I'll have to look that one up.
How about let's just start with whitetail and mule deer. Let's go with that.
Oh, okay. Whitetail, the stuff that we get back east. Uh, I've used that for spinning deer here. In fact, someone just gave me a hide of it. Uh, it works. I mean, I've done it. I've never had a problem with it. I always get a whole bunch of it from the hunters in this area. Uh, it's a little thinner, depending on the region. One of the problems is if you get it from down in the southern sections, it kind of runs thinner than up in our area, up in the northern sections. I think it has a lot to do with how the winters are. Up around here, it's a little colder versus going down south more, where the hair is a little thinner. But as for the differences, I just I see what I do is I end up looking at the hair first. I'm not worried about who it's coming from, and see what kind of an application I can use it for. So
Yeah, I think, you gotta, to a certain degree, it's not that expensive, and it's okay to buy a bunch of different patches of each kind, so that you can assess the application, right? So, for stimulators, you can't have a whole lot of elk hair that's curved, because when you put it in the stacker, it can flare in different directions before you tie it in. So you want some stuff that's straighter, whereas you could use the curved stuff for like small elk hairs.
correct.
Yeah. But let me ask you this. So this is again, it's a Patrick question. So I find that one of the hardest types of hair to find, that's exactly what you need with just the right fineness, has just the right amount of straightness to it, and particularly has the right length of tips, is for my favorite mayfly pattern, which is a comparadun.
That is um, that is extremely difficult. And buying it, it's like coastal deer hair. It's got to be very thin. The tips have to be uh, short enough that when you put it into flare, uh, that it doesn't.
You're
It's
not all tips.
very thin. You want to be able to keep them that it rolls 180 degrees. And it's not thick, and because if it's too thick, the wing doesn't look right, and your wing ends up being, how can I say it? When you just want one section of the hook just to be that, and you got a heavier hair, it takes up more room. You want that thin part. Also, when you cut it, you want to be able to make a nice tapered body. So most of the time when I'm doing comparators, I'm cutting that close to the wing, so that I could just build the dubbing. And when I'm not a big with the comparadun, I use a lot with the sparkle dun. I don't like to use those microfibettes, or where the sparkle dun is the Antron yarn or Zelon sticking out the back. But you really need that coastal deer hair, and that's what it was always called. But the patches, when you purchase them, are very small. They are like this by
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
They're very small.
Somebody once gave me an entire hide of comparadun hair, and I believe that I've sold it's so good. I've sold patches like this by this for $100. No, I made that up. I've given it
I
away to
believe you
good
made it
friends.
up.
I've given it away to good friends, because once I stopped commercial tying, I was like, I'll never use all this. So here, we're going to make you dig deep on this one. And then we'll probably, we want to try to keep this to 45 minutes. So maybe this is our last question, Jerry. So Alan Borgol, if that's how you pronounce it, asks, what about a deer mask?
Well, they got short hairs around there, and you brought up the hawk,
Yeah.
so it ends up being almost the same thing. Small flies, I think that you could probably tie in nice comparaduns with that, because the hair is thinner, right around by the mask.
Yeah. Maybe
And
it's tough though, because it's short.
small elk hair caddis well, I'll call them elk hair, but they're actually called deer hair if you're using deer hair. But now you can get into nice smaller flies with that.
Yeah. So, Jerry, we're at 45 minutes, which we tried to keep it short for everybody. Thanks so much for putting this together. I know that actually when I first got started tying deer hair was and elk hair and even moose hair for tails was impossible without that looser wrap to keep it from flaring. But I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. I'll say again, this is all made possible by the members of Fly Fishers International. And if you like what you see and you hope to see more, then make sure that you become part of the organization by joining us. There's a lot that we have to offer. I want to thank Jerry Coviello, who's the head of our Fly Tying Group. I feel pretty confident saying, Jerry, that the members of Fly Fishers International comprise probably the foremost leading experts in fly tying, especially a lot of classic patterns. And we're going to try to bring those folks coming for the next series of FFI Online moving forward, so that we have a combination of some basic techniques that Jerry has brought to us, tying soft tackles, taming elk and deer hair. We've got 3 ways to tie a parachute next week, but really hope to show you what we have to offer in terms of the breadth of experience, expertise, and the luminaries of the sport of fly tying in the months and years to come. So with that, Jerry, you want to say, have anything final you want to add?
Just the video is also been added to the this video with narration is on the video library on the website. So you can look up Orange Stimulator and you'll be able to get a full pattern list and how to tie it right there.
Yep, you got it. And just to address one last comment we got, we do hope to bring a variety of patterns, including saltwater and warm water bass patterns, etc. Yeah, we'll see everybody. Hopefully you'll join us tomorrow night and Thursday night and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday next week. You can see all of the offerings at flyfishersinternational.org/FFI-online. We got the whole calendar there. Hey, Jerry, thanks again, buddy. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Catch you later.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.